Brian Watson. I'm Executive Creative Director at Cactus. Cactus is a strategic and creatively driven ad agency in Denver. And one of the areas where we've been really fortunate to do a lot of work as an ad agency over the last several years is in helping to tackle the issues of suicide prevention and mental health stigma reduction, and also creating work aimed at increasing help-seeking behaviors for those with mental health needs. And so mental health has been such a longstanding priority for Cactus that we've been fortunate in the last couple of years to use May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month, to host conversations with people who are doing really great work in the mental health awareness and stigma reduction space. And so today I'm very excited to be talking with Martha and Chris Thomas of the Defensive Line. And I just want to say I so admire the work that you guys are doing and the value that you bring through that work to so many people. So thank you for giving your time to this conversation today. I'm really excited to be and grateful to be speaking with you both.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yes, really appreciate it. Look forward to this. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to get started by way of kind of introduction to you guys and what you're doing with the Defensive Line, and maybe give you the opportunity just to share your story, which really begins with the story of your daughter, Ella, and how that led you to the work that you're doing today.
Well, I'll start. We have two children, Ella and Solomon. And in 2018, we lost Ella to suicide. She was 24. And our son, Solomon, was just finishing up his rookie year in the NFL. And so we very quickly got asked to do some interviews about Ella and what happened, and did them. And it got us talking, and it got us thinking and learning, trying to make sure we were sharing safe messaging. And we kind of haven't stopped. So that's a very simplistic overview of it, but that's how we started.
And part of, we didn't want Ella's death to define her life and she was an excellent athlete. She was a human narrator. She had the ability to connect people, whether they were living on the street or whether they were executives in, a headquarters. She just had this great skill and knack of just connecting people, lighting up the room. And part of our storytelling, as Martha mentioned, was we thought it was important for other parents and adults to understand that if this could happen to our daughter, it could happen to anybody. And we wouldn't wish this on our worst enemy. So how do we help communicate, what happened and how do you prevent it? Because one of the things we could talk about more deeper later, but suicide is preventable. It's one of the most preventable deaths. And for a long time, we didn't want to believe that because we didn't want the whole blame game and shame and all. But still, as we dug more into it, as you analyze it, there are things that can happen that can help save somebody.
Yeah. You mentioned storytelling, and it's one of the things that we do as an advertising agency is we tell stories, and we tell brand stories, and we tell stories of organizations and causes, and all of us have stories that we believe about ourselves and about the world around us, about our place in it, and sometimes we can believe a story that's not true, that's not helpful, that can be harmful. And how would you guys say that the work that you're doing at the Defensive Line is helping people who find themselves in a story that is harmful, in a story that is maybe untrue, in a story that is holding them back? How do you help them how do you use creativity in that? How do you find ways to, in your mission, use creativity and storytelling to help people connect with a new story and maybe see themselves in a way they hadn't before?
I think, we did several interviews. So we did interviews on ESPN, the NFL Network, CNN, Those are some of the big ones. But using our kind of raw story really seems to help people to open up and think that they could be us. I know we were at a major university in the country, and the head basketball coach came up to us afterwards and he said, my coaches and I looked at each other when you all were telling your story and said, this could be us.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't change how we talk to our kids and our athletes, this could be us.
Mm-hmm.
But I think part of the creativity, I was a teacher by training, so it's always creative if you ask me, but, is relating to the people in the room. Who's in the room that needs to hear maybe something a little bit differently than, if we're talking at a corporation versus a school versus a university, what do people need to know and hear that might be different? Different people have different opportunities with kids, but teachers and coaches in middle school and high school often spend more time with the students than maybe their parents are at that time in their life. And they may be the ones that they listen to. So they have these unique opportunities to be ears and safe places for their students or athletes to talk.
And, the other part of the storytelling is helping people relate to the importance of mental health being a key part of your life. And it's as important as physical health and spiritual health. And you need all three legs of the stool to be balanced so that you have a balance in whole life. And that, if you are suffering from mental illness or mental health issues or suicide ideation, you are not the only one. I mean, mental illness affects 1 out of 4 adults. And the likelihood of someone having suicide ideation is common. So get the help you need to get through it. So, and the other part is, the more we talk about, our mission is to connect and communicate about the importance of mental health. And the more we communicate, the more we normalize the conversation, the more we reduce stigma. And if you reduce stigma, it's a big, big step forward, because if you stigmatize something, you reduce the hope, you create social isolation, you lower self-esteem. It makes it difficult to work, to compete, to live your life. So that's part of why we want to communicate and then connect, helps people not feel like they're alone. And we know right now, loneliness is a huge epidemic. 40% of, high school students feel hopeless. And so the more we tell the story about it's okay to not be okay, it's okay to get help, it's okay to not feel normal. Those are things that are just common things. So we feel the more we storytell, the better off we are. And we also, as we're storytelling, we're working with key organizations like the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention so that we storytell in an ethical and responsible way so that we can then share with others as you're dealing with, suicide. Here's the right language. Here's the right information so that people can be educated and we can create this sense of hope and opportunity.
That's great. As you were both talking about storytelling, one of the things that you each hit on in a little bit of a different way was this, the importance of vulnerability, of transparency, of opening up and connecting with people through pain, connecting with people through, that's something I think we all realize is true, that we get our greatest connections with one another by sharing the difficulties, by sharing the struggles, by sharing the pains. But it's the hardest thing to do for a lot of people, is to be open about that. I think, a lot of people are concerned that somebody might not understand, that they might not want to feel burdened or like they're burdening somebody else by opening up and sharing. And you guys are doing that in such a profound way, because the profound pain and grief that you have endured, and I'm sure continue to endure as life goes on, is something that you've chosen to step into, and you've chosen to use that as a tool to bless others. And I'm sure that, or at least my best guess would be that it could be very tempting to do the opposite, to kind of close up and to kind of want to not have to talk about this all the time. And so you guys have created so much connection through others by opening up your pain. How does that affect you as you carry on this work? How has it actually helped you heal and kind of live with your grief in a positive way? And what inspired you originally, as well as continually as you go on, to keep doing that, to take that harder path that you take, because I assume you realize the blessing that it can be for others?
And I go back to just how difficult it was for us to go through the pain and journey of losing Ella and almost losing Solomon, that we feel like we have to say and do something. One of the things that when we do our keynote and as we do our workshops and parent universities and other discussions, I share the importance of how Solomon, when he opens up, it impacts somebody differently because they're seeing, this 6'3", 290-pound behemoth open up and talk about his insecurity, talk about, how losing a sister almost caused him to contemplate suicide, and how the fact that somebody recognized that he was in pain and gave him permission to go get help, that it got him down the path of now being a mental health advocate. And it's all because someone recognized it and because they probably were exposed to this importance of vulnerability. So that's one key thing. And we think then that, that led to Solomon and then Dak working together, doing, messaging on men being vulnerable and how that was used. Martha was able to get it to be used in the Dallas Independent School District for all the teachers and coaches, and over 22,000 people saw that, and they see the importance of somebody opening up and being vulnerable. For me also personally, it's, sharing and opening up how, I'm the survivor of not only suicide loss, but also, sexual and physical and racial abuse, and survivor of, 6+ adverse childhood experiences that led to me being, an alcoholic. And because I got the help through Martha, through recovery, through therapy, that helped me get me to a point where I now can talk about the importance of whole health and suicide prevention. And there's not a time that goes by when I share that story in a keynote or a panel where someone else comes up and say, I'm so glad you shared that. I need to go get help. And so if we just are able to touch one person each time we talk and open up our mouth, it helps saves life. And for me, it's like my 12th step, being able to give back. And so it helps keep me, in the program and keeps me sober.
But I also, we do share our pain, but we also share our hope and our joy. And I think people don't necessarily know if they're experiencing pain, if they should be able to feel hope and joy. But I think it's really important to share with people that as well, because it's okay. It can be true that you are suffering in pain and you have hope and joy at the same time. And that to me, I feel like, part of empowering people to be able to have mental health conversations, to be able to talk about suicide with their students, to be able to be part of the conversation of making a solution gives people hope.
Yeah. That's terrific. Thank you guys for sharing that. It's so true that, we seem to always want to impress one another with our strengths, with having it all together. And as a society, strength and independence is really seen and kind of held up as a virtue, but it really is in the opening up of our pains and our losses and our wounds and our imperfections that we make connections with each other. And, you referred to this as well, Martha, but that's where you kind of open the door for everybody else to go, oh, it's okay. We're in a space where I can actually be real here. And so I think the work that you guys do to create those environments and welcome people into those and create invitations to be vulnerable is really, really fantastic. As you're doing that work, ideally, I'm sure you want to be able to reach, to impact anyone and everyone you possibly can. The message that you guys have, the stories that you share, they are for all of us. There's none of us that doesn't deal with some kind of mental health struggles, with some challenges, and usually a variety of all the above. But I'm sure there are also limited resources, dollars, time, personnel. So what have you guys done to try to be strategic in how can we create the greatest impact with what we have? Whether that's individuals, a certain group of individuals, a certain audience segment, if you will, to kind of use advertising language, or and maybe those are the people who are most in need. Maybe those are the people who you think, these are the people who we have the greatest opportunity to get impact or to see an impact out of if they hear this message. What do you guys do in that regard to be strategic with the resources you do have to share your message?
I could take a stab at that, and I may come back with some other ideas. But for us, it's been focusing on. You look at our vision. Our vision is a world where no young person of color dies by suicide. Now, with that, we will help anybody, but we feel that it's important to focus on the leaders of young people of color. So our focus is on leaders of young people of color. First of all, after Ella died, one of the things that sort of, aside from the pain of losing our daughter, and the blame and the shame, one of my immediate thoughts was I didn't think Black people died by suicide. And as we go around the country and talk this, there's so many other people, Black, Latino, Indian, that say the same. I mean, they don't think it impacts them. But when you look at the data, it's the exact opposite. I mean, the highest growth rate right now is amongst youth of color. Since 2018, the suicide rate for youth of color is up 54%. For the white population, it's down 17%. We got to find a way to get that to go down for everybody. So our focus is on leaders of young people of color, and then we work with key other organizations that have great resources. Crisis Text Line 988, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. People like Dr. Prescott's Faith Fight Finish, Mental Health America, and we find a way to leverage each other's strengths and platforms to make a difference, to get the message out. And that's one reason why we also leverage Solomon and in his NFL platform, and he's got people who talk about mental health, from the NBA and all those other areas. So that helps create this synergy. But that's a key area of focus because that helps Martha and I get more done, get a bigger bang for our buck, if that makes sense. And then the other thing we do is we try to get and work on the college campuses and then leverage their resources and their voice to share that with the coaches. And then the coaches share that with the community that they're in. We're going to be at Stanford. And when we work with Stanford, they will eventually then go work with like Palo Alto High School, and they share, key resources and messaging and things like that. So that's a key way we try to create synergy and use creativity and focus to help us, reduce the suicide rates for young kids of color.
Awesome. As you guys look forward, what new opportunities for impact do you see? What goals do you have? What challenges are in front of you that you wish you had more resources or additional ideas to help solve that you're currently wrestling with? And is there any way that others might be able to join you guys in the mission that you're on?
One thing is getting the message out there, So whether that be through, we don't really call it advertising, but it essentially is, right? Like we're trying to get the message out there that it's okay to talk about mental health issues. It's okay to talk about suicide and suicide prevention to people. So how do we how do we keep getting that message out? And it's okay to listen, like how do you have a mental health conversation with someone who might be struggling, and what do you do in response to it? So those messages are constant and constantly need to be out there because people don't know always. I was advocating at the Capitol in Austin for Texas yesterday, and I went into one of the senators, a state senator's offices to, say what bills we were promoting. And the people in there didn't know what 988 was. Mm. And so everyone should know what 988 is, just like everyone knows what 911 is. And it's still something like only 25% of people do. It's an incredible resource that is there. So, how through, sharing that message can we help save lives? There's some super simple things we can do, and empower everyone to do them. You don't have to be a mental health professional to have a conversation with someone about how they're really doing. How are you really doing, right? And actually listen to what they say without passing judgment or trying to solve their problems for them. So that's one way.
Yeah. And to build on what Martha just mentioned, suicide prevention is nonpartisan. I mean, it affects everybody, whether you're Black or white, Democrat or Republican, rich or poor. I mean, it impacts everybody. And so one of the things right now we need to start focusing in on is advocating for those that are disproportionately being impacted by suicide, whether it's rural white males, whether it's youth of color, whether it's LGBTQ. We got to find a way to help reduce the suicide rates. And so doing things like Martha, working with your local politicians, the governors, your congresspeople, your senators, because right now a lot of things unfortunately are getting dismantled, whether it's the collection of data, whether it's, mental health awareness training, the specialized services that exist on 988 for veterans and LGBTQ. We got to find a way to keep these things in place so we can help reduce suicide. That's just the overall piece that needs to be happening for people who want to help make a difference. For the defensive line specifically, we're trying to leverage. We were recently nominated as a Clinton Global Initiative Commitment Action Partner. And they nominated us because they want us to take our D-line suicide prevention training that Martha worked together with on it to help that we share with colleges, with high schools, with corporations. It's a suicide prevention training. And we want to find a way to reach like 3.2 million people in addition to the folks that we've reached already. And we're going to do that through creating scale, by leveraging AI, by expanding the number of trainers that we have to get up to 2,000 trainers, by doing it in English and in Spanish. But that's sort of our approach that we're trying to work on over the next 5 years. And to do that, we need to secure resources, whether it's funding, whether it's, other types of technology resources to help us achieve that goal of reaching 3.2 million people. Because we feel like when it's done, we make a difference. We see a huge increase in teachers' comfort levels in having a conversation with a student who's at risk. 98% of the people who attend our D-Line suicide prevention workshop walk away with an action plan. And I know Martha can share more about why that's important, but that's huge. If we can, as we're talking to people, to be proactive and preventative and hopeful, for them to have an action plan to be able to deal with somebody who's going to have a mental health crisis.
Yeah, I think so often people are afraid to talk about it because they're afraid that they don't know the right thing to say, or that they'll say the wrong thing and cause a problem. And
Yes.
Having done some suicide prevention training myself, that was the first big eye opener I learned, was like, you can't say the wrong thing. You can't be afraid to talk about it, because the person you're talking to not only wants but needs to talk about it, and they just need somebody they can open up to.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why we call ourselves the defensive line instead of Ella's story. One, the issue is bigger than Ella, but we want to defend against some of those myths and some of those stereotypes, and to help reduce the stigma. One of the things Martha always talks about is that, asking someone if they're going to die by suicide does not put that in their head. There are dozens of surveys and data points that show that that doesn't happen. In fact, it does the exact opposite. It gives them relief to know that somebody is concerned about them. And then we walk through skills and trainings of how you have the right kind of conversations, talking about the importance of not saying this someone committed suicide, but someone died by suicide. You don't commit cancer, you don't commit lung disease or kidney disease, you die by kidney disease. It's like die by suicide because it's a mental illness. So those kind of like basic things, defending against those kind of myths so we can promote life are so important.
Yeah, well, a couple of quotes that I recall from watching some videos on your guys' website. There was a quote from each of you that stuck out to me. One was, I think it was you, Martha, turn your pain into purpose. And Chris, I think you said something along the lines of when you're handed a mess, create a message. And I think the way you guys have done those two things is very, very beautiful. And I am confident that the impact that you guys are having is much greater than you even realize. So thank you for being on the front lines of an effort like this, and being able to channel what you've been given into something that can have positivity and purpose for people, and for Ella to be able to have her life impact others in ways none of you would have ever seen coming, and you wouldn't have wished for, but there's beauty in it all the same. And that beauty is because you guys have made the choice to handle it the way you have. So thank you so much for that, and for having this great conversation today.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Thank you. Appreciate it.